I wasn't born to be beautiful, at least not in the way my family defined it. In our house, beauty wasn't just praised. It was currency. It was religion. My mother built her entire existence around looking perfect, like she stepped out of a glossy magazine at all times, even when doing the laundry. Her hair never out of place, makeup always immaculate, her wardrobe meticulously curated. She wasn't a woman, she was a performance. And she expected everyone around her, especially me, to play along. My father was more restrained. Quiet, observant, always seated with a newspaper in hand and a glass of something strong nearby. He rarely spoke, but when he did, it was with the kind of disappointment that could shatter glass. He didn't yell, he sighed. And that sigh always told me exactly how much of a letdown I was. Then there was my grandmother, old school to the bone. She didn't believe in softness. She believed in discipline, silence, and beauty pageants. She worshipped appearances with a zeal I couldn't match, and didn't care to. She saw me not as her granddaughter, but as a failed replica of my mother. I never had a chance. I was 10 when it began, a small patch of pale skin blooming on my left cheek like a ghostly fingerprint. I thought maybe it was a bruise or a rash. My mother's reaction was swift. She dragged me to 3 dermatologists in 2 weeks, demanding answers like it was an emergency. When the word vitiligo came out of the doctor's mouth, my mother didn't ask if it hurt. She didn't ask if I was scared. She asked one question. Can it be removed? When the doctor shook his head, she went silent. The ride home was quiet, tense. Her fingers drummed on the steering wheel like she was keeping time with a ticking bomb. The next day, my grandmother showed up at our door with a bag full of heavy creams and concealers. This can't be what people remember when they look at you, she said. You'll fix this. I wanted to say, I didn't break anything. But I didn't. Because in our house, talking back was worse than having vitiligo. After that, my wardrobe changed. I wasn't allowed to wear tank tops or short sleeves, no matter the heat. My summer clothes disappeared overnight, replaced by long-sleeved blouses and pants. My mother applied thick makeup to my face every morning like it was a ritual. I used to hate the feeling of it, the way it clung to my skin like a mask I hadn't chosen. At school, I pretended it didn't bother me. I laughed when people asked if I was goth or allergic to the sun. But inside, I was shrinking. Every comment, every stare chipped away at whatever was left of my self-worth. I began to wonder if I really was broken, if I really was unlovable. Because the people who were supposed to love me, unconditionally, treated me like a shameful secret. My mother never hugged me without wincing. My grandmother once told me, flat out, no man is going to want a girl who looks like she's been bleached. And my father? He just shook his head every time I walked into the room without makeup. I was suffocating in my own skin. Not because of the vitiligo, but because of the way they made me feel about it. Like it was my fault. Like I had ruined the family portrait they had curated for years. And the worst part? I started believing them. But somewhere deep inside me, hidden beneath the layers of powder and pain, something else was growing. Something quiet, but fierce. It wasn't confidence yet, not quite. It was defiance. A flicker of resistance. A part of me that whispered, this isn't right. You deserve better. That flicker would grow with every cruel comment, every forced smile, every time I caught my mother hiding me from the camera lens. And one day, it would ignite. It would become a fire so bright that none of them would be able to ignore me again. There were unspoken rules in our house, rules no one ever dared write down, but everyone followed. And I learned early that I was the only one who had to obey them. They weren't rules for good behavior or kindness or decency. They were rules for me, the ugly girl, the daughter who ruined the family symmetry, as my grandmother once phrased it, laughing like she wasn't cutting me open with every word. Rules like, don't sit too close to the window, someone might see your skin. Don't wear bright colors, they draw attention to your face. Let your sister go first, she's prettier, it's only fair. Yes, I had a sister. Lauren. Just 1 year younger than me, but treated like royalty. She was everything I wasn't: clear skin, long lashes, glowing complexion, the kind of girl you see in shampoo ads. She learned early how to smile sweetly and weaponize it. Our parents adored her. My grandmother spoiled her rotten. And Lauren knew it. Sometimes I think she pitied me. Other times, I think she loved that she could look like an angel while I stood next to her like a broken toy. Lauren was never outright cruel. That wasn't her style. Her gift was subtlety, the soft cut. Like when we'd go out and she'd loudly ask if I forgot to cover that spot again. Or when she posted family photos online and cropped me out every time, then acted surprised when I noticed. And my parents? They never said a word. In fact, they encouraged it. Because to them, Lauren was the legacy, the image. I was the reminder that genes could misfire. The truth is, the way they treated me became a mirror. Every glance, every offhand comment, every subtle grimace, it taught me to loathe my reflection. I'd stare into the bathroom mirror before school and ask myself, why did I have to be the one? Why me? Why this? But I never said a word. Because the biggest rule of all was this: never make the family look bad. I became the expert at disappearing in plain sight. At walking softly, dressing neutrally, never drawing attention. I stopped asking for birthday parties. I stopped asking for anything, really. I gave up on praise. I gave up on affection. Instead, I poured myself into school. Books didn't care how I looked. Teachers noticed my essays, not my skin. And when I was writing, I could disappear completely into stories where girls like me were seen, loved, even chosen. But no matter how many awards I won or scholarships I earned, my parents never praised me the way they praised Lauren when she brought home a dance trophy or wore a new dress. My victories weren't worth framing. I wasn't worth framing. I can still remember a conversation I overheard between my mother and grandmother the night of Lauren's 16th birthday party. They were talking about future weddings, yes, weddings, and how beautiful Lauren would look in a white gown. My grandmother chuckled, and what about her? Meaning me. My mother paused for a beat and then said flatly, let's just hope she finds someone blind and desperate. They both laughed. And I sat in the hallway, my hands shaking, a knot in my throat so thick I couldn't breathe. That night, I decided something. If they were going to treat me like a shadow, I would learn how to thrive in the dark. I would stop begging for their acceptance. I would build my life in spite of them. But part of me still clung to the dream that maybe, just maybe, if I proved myself enough, they'd change. Maybe they'd see me. I didn't know it then, but that dream would be the hardest one to kill. I was 19 when it happened, when the facade they clung to like religion finally cracked. It all started with a family photo. Every December, like clockwork, my mother would schedule an elaborate photo shoot for our annual Christmas card. It was a sacred tradition in our house, not because of love, but because it let my parents broadcast a curated illusion to the world. Perfect outfits, perfect smiles, perfect family. But that year felt different. I had just finished my first semester of college, the first time I'd ever lived away from home, the first time I had tasted what it meant to breathe without judgment. I had found people who saw me as a whole person, not a defective display item. I was still quiet, still healing, but there was a new edge in me, one they hadn't expected. Still, I came home for the holidays, hopeful in the foolish way only neglected children can be, thinking maybe this time would be different. Maybe being away had made them miss me. Maybe the distance had softened something in them. But I was wrong. So very wrong. The day of the photo shoot, I came downstairs dressed in the red dress I'd bought on my own. Long sleeves, elegant neckline, something that made me feel confident. Maybe even beautiful. Lauren was already downstairs, glowing in a designer outfit my parents had bought her just for the shoot. My mother looked up from adjusting her pearl earrings, eyes scanning me top to bottom, and I saw it, that subtle flicker of disapproval. Don't you have something else? She asked, voice tight. I felt my stomach knot. What's wrong with this? It's just bold, she said. We're trying to keep it cohesive. Maybe try the beige sweater from last year? Beige. Bland. Invisible. I didn't move. I couldn't. I knew what this was. It wasn't about cohesion. It was about camouflage. They didn't want me standing out. They wanted me hidden. Then my father chimed in, not even looking up from his phone. Maybe we'll do this one without you this year. Keep it simple. That's when it hit me. It wasn't just about what I wore. They had already made the decision. The next day, the card was printed and posted, glossy, elegant, and cold. My parents. Lauren. Even the dog. But not me. Not even a mention. No, we miss you, or she's away at college. Nothing. Just a gleaming snapshot of the family they wanted people to see, without the daughter who didn't fit the frame. I stared at the card for a long time. And then, without thinking, I flipped it over. Printed in gold script were the words, "The Whitman family, together always." I laughed. A short, bitter sound that startled even me. Together always? What a joke. They had cut me out like I was a smudge on the lens. As if removing me made the photo, and by extension, their lives more presentable. But this time, I didn't cry. This time, something shifted. That night, I made a decision. No more hoping. No more waiting for them to choose me. If they didn't want me in the picture, I'd stop standing at the edge of the frame. I would build a life where I didn't have to beg for space. A life where I wasn't an apology in long sleeves. They wanted a perfect card? Fine. Let them have their fiction. Because the truth, the real story, was about to begin, and I would be the one writing it. It had been 3 months since the Christmas card. 3 months since I realized that I was nothing more than a family inconvenience they were finally bold enough to crop out publicly. And though I tried to keep my head held high back at college, the wound was deeper than I wanted to admit. Then came the call. It was Lauren, her voice tight but measured, the kind of tone she used when pretending to care. "Grandma's in the hospital," she said. "She asked for you." At first, I thought I'd misheard her. My grandmother hadn't acknowledged me in over a year. The last words she said to me were, "You'll never find someone unless you fix yourself," during Thanksgiving, while passing me the mashed potatoes. So for her to ask for me, specifically, felt strange. And yet, something in me, some buried sense of duty, or maybe the desperate hope for closure, made me go. When I walked into that sterile hospital room, she looked small, frail, a skeleton wrapped in blankets. The sharpness in her eyes was dulled, but the bitterness in her smirk remained. "You came," she rasped. I nodded. "You asked for me." She tilted her head, studying my face like she was still trying to find something wrong with it. Still wearing long sleeves, she whispered. I didn't respond. She coughed, then motioned for me to sit. "You think you've been mistreated," she said slowly. "But I did it for you. Your mother too. We were tough because the world is tougher on girls like you. Girls who aren't born beautiful." My stomach turned. "That's what you wanted to say before you die?" I asked, voice cold. She didn't flinch. "I wanted to remind you that we did the best we could. Even if it hurt you. You'll understand when you're older." I stood up. "No," I said. "I won't." I walked out of that room and didn't look back. Not when she called my name. Not when the nurse asked if I wanted to stay. 2 days later, she died. And the day after that, my mother called, not to grieve, but to assign me a task. "We need you to help with the will reading," she said. I almost laughed. "Why? I'm not even in the Christmas card, remember?" "Don't be childish," she snapped. "She left something for you." I went, not for the inheritance, but to witness the last chapter of a woman who had shaped so much of my pain. The lawyer read the will slowly, deliberately, bequeathing pearls to Lauren, an antique watch to my father, her estate to my mother. And then he paused. "To my granddaughter Ava," he read, "I leave the mirror from my vanity, so she can finally see herself clearly." There it was. Her final insult, dressed up as legacy. After the reading, I stood in the hallway alone with the ornate gold-framed mirror in my hands. I stared at it, at the girl reflected back at me, older now, scarred but standing. And for the first time, I didn't see what they saw. I didn't see a defect. I saw me. Not broken. Not pitiful. Just real. And maybe that was the beginning of everything changing. I didn't go to the funeral. They sent photos anyway. A row of solemn faces dressed in coordinated navy. My mother in her pearls. Lauren dabbing her eyes like she was mourning a woman she hadn't called in months. All perfectly framed. All perfectly hollow. And I was glad I wasn't there. Because I was done pretending. Or at least, I thought I was, until I received a message that cracked my resolve like a hairline fracture under pressure. It was from a name I didn't recognize at first. Elena Morrison. The profile picture was soft, an older woman, gray curls, kind eyes. I hovered over the message for a minute before opening it. "Ava, I don't know if you remember me. I was your kindergarten teacher. I just wanted you to know, I've followed your journey from afar. I saw what happened with your family. I'm proud of you. And I wanted you to know, you were always my brightest star. Never forget that." I sat in stunned silence. The words blurred. It wasn't a long message. It wasn't dramatic. But it was the first time in years that someone who had seen me as me, not filtered through family shame or pity, reached out to say I was worth something. And suddenly, I felt the cracks in my foundation widen. For a moment, all the rage I'd carefully folded into my strength began to unravel. I remembered sitting in her class, 5 years old, my vitiligo just beginning to show. I'd cried when another student called me a spotted monster. Ms. Morrison had knelt beside me, brushed back my curls, and said, "You are not a mistake. You are a painting." I hadn't thought about that in years. But now it rushed back like floodwater breaching a dam. That message did more than offer comfort. It exposed the years I had lost trying to win the approval of people who could never see me as whole. People who had been more concerned with appearances than reality. People who told me love was conditional, and that I hadn't earned it. But here was this woman, with no obligation to me, no benefit to gain, reaching out after more than a decade just to say, you mattered. It was the quiet undoing of a lie I'd lived in for too long. And it made something crystal clear. If I wanted to heal, truly heal, I had to stop living like I was still in that house, still trying to shrink myself into their picture-perfect mold. I needed to step forward, not just away. So I began. Not with a grand gesture, but with something small. I replied, "Thank you. You have no idea how much this meant." And in that reply, I planted the first seed of the life I would grow for me. Without the shame, without the rules, without them. Months passed. I graduated early, got a job that didn't care about my appearance, only my ideas. I moved into a quiet apartment with tall windows and soft light, a place where no one told me what to wear, how to smile, or how to hide. I finally felt like I was becoming someone real. But peace, I learned, has a price, especially when you've walked away from people who can't bear to lose control over you. It was a Thursday afternoon, just after work, when I opened my email and saw the subject line. From Mom. My finger hovered over the mouse. Part of me wanted to delete it without reading. Another part, the stubborn, curious, still slightly wounded part, clicked. Ava, I hope you're doing well. I know things have been tense between us. But Lauren is getting married in the fall, and she's asked for you to be a bridesmaid. It would mean the world to her if you came. We can put the past behind us for family. I stared at the screen, jaw clenched. Put the past behind us? Just like that? As if years of humiliation, exclusion, and manipulation could be wiped away with one pastel invitation and a matching dress? They didn't want reconciliation. They wanted convenience. They wanted the image of a family reunion, the redemption arc, with none of the responsibility for the pain they caused. I could already see it, a smiling photo on Instagram, captioned, "Sisters by blood, reunited by love," like we were some fairy tale. But we weren't. We were a cautionary tale. Still, I didn't respond. Not at first. Instead, I reached out to the only person who had ever offered me love with no strings. My college roommate, Zoe, the one who stayed up with me during panic attacks, who helped me take off the long sleeves and walk into sunlight without shame. I knew they'd come back, she said over coffee. You've done too well without them. I don't owe them anything, I said. No, she said. You don't. But maybe it's time they realized what they lost. A week later, I responded. Tell Lauren I wish her happiness. But I won't be attending. I build a life where I don't have to shrink to fit in. I hope someday you'll understand that. Until then, I'll stay where I belong, free. No rage. No guilt. Just truth. And for the first time, it felt enough. But what I didn't expect was what came next. Because they weren't done. Not yet. 2 days after I sent my reply, my phone lit up with a call from an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Ava? It's Lauren. Her voice sounded different, softer, almost uncertain, like she wasn't sure who she was talking to anymore. I just wanted to say, I didn't know what they did to you. Not really, she said. I thought you were just being dramatic. But I looked back at the Christmas photo. I remembered how you cried in middle school after Grandma's comment about your arms. I saw things I should have seen earlier. I let the silence stretch. She continued, I'm not asking you to forgive everything. But I wanted you to know. I'm sorry. It was quiet for a long moment. Then I said, thank you. Not because it fixed anything, but because it mattered that someone, finally, saw me. Later that week, I got a message from my aunt, one of the few relatives I barely knew. She'd seen my story online. Yes, my story, because I'd started writing. What began as journaling became essays, then blog posts, then a small online following of people who resonated with my words. She wrote, You were always the brave one. We just didn't know how to protect you. And for the first time, I felt like maybe the past didn't have to be erased to be healed. It just had to be faced, with honesty, not performance. Now, I live in a small, sunlit house with a rescue dog named Kala. I wear short sleeves without thinking. I speak at events about self-image and invisible abuse. I mentor teens with vitiligo and remind them what I once forgot, that our worth is not up for debate. My parents haven't tried again. Maybe they finally realized they lost their grip. Or maybe they're waiting for another chance to rewrite the narrative. But they won't get it. Because I don't need their version anymore. I have my own. I didn't get a picture-perfect family. I didn't get the holiday cards or the unconditional love. But I got something better. I got myself, whole, imperfect, unashamed. And that is more than enough.